I've been so excited about Life Hacks, this whole series on the book of Proverbs. And I'm just wondering how many of you have ever had an account hacked, maybe a social media account where somebody sends you a message to say, hey, I think you've been hacked, change your password. It may have happened with regard to your finances or your medical information. And whenever that happens, you just feel kind of insecure. It messes up your life. And so the writer of Proverbs is writing to you to say, hey, I want to help you build a firewall around your mind and your mouth and your money. You think about it, if just those three things you could get a handle on and have wisdom in, it would save you so much pain and frustration. So the writer of Proverbs, this happens to be Solomon that begins in chapter 1, and he says, for gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction in prudent behavior, that's a good word, prudent, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to those who are simple, and knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. For understanding proverbs and parables, the sayings and riddles of the wise. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Skipping down to verse 22, how long will you simpletons love your simple ways? How long will you mockers delight in mockery? And fools hate knowledge. Repent at my rebuke. It's talking about wisdom. Then I will pour out my thoughts to you. I will make known to you my teachings. Verse 32, for the waywardness of the simple will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. But whoever listens to me will live in safety and be at ease without fear or harm. I've not really ever preached through the book of Proverbs before. So as I was reading through this first chapter, there were some things that really stood out to me. And one is there are two kinds of wisdom. And I thought, wow, I've not really ever thought about that. And the first is being prudent. He uses the word being prudent. And it's the idea of being able to read a room, to be street smart, to be able to kind of feel that like a nudge in your spirit and say, hey, something's wrong. It's being prudent. And then there's instruction, and that is the idea of integrity, of character, of being able to see the big picture of how things are connected. If you do this, and it's going to lead to that and this. And so he spends some time in talking about the two kinds of wisdom that you need. And he shows all kinds of stories and parables and kind of gotcha moments to say, you need to grow in wisdom. But then what really got me is when he started talking about being a fool. Now, wisdom is the ability to make the best decisions in complex situations. But foolish people don't think that way. And there's two types of fools. The first is a simple fool, and that's really a person that's just naive. It's like our children, when they're little. I mean, you think about this. You got to tell your kids, don't run into the street. I mean, that's a simpleton. Don't take candy from strangers. Don't cut your hair. How many of your kids cut their hair? And it's the idea that you're naive and you're simple, but then as you grow up, it's not just being simple, it's being foolish. And being foolish is when, your kids at teenage years say, I don't care. I just don't care. It's like Dirk Bentley's song where he says, Dirk Bentley says, I just don't care. So what was I thinking? I love this song. I just got to read it real quick, okay? He says, Becky was a beauty from South Alabama. Her daddy had a heart like a 9-pound hammer. Think he even did some time in the slammer. What was I thinking? And he goes on to the chorus and says, well, I was thinking about a little white tank top sitting right there in the middle by me. I was thinking about a long kiss. Man, I got to get going where this night may lead. I don't know what, I know what I was feeling, but I don't know what I was thinking with no G. And that's where fools are. They're like, hey, I'm going to go with my feelings. I'm going to go with my friends. And, you ask them about it, well, I don't care. You can be an old fool, as you get older and say, I don't care about what I eat, how I fix them, what I say, what I drink. The frontal lobe of every boy, it doesn't really mature until 26, and for some people, 62. But the reality is, when you're a fool, you make bad decisions. So what? Well, Proverbs 132 says, the bad decisions of a fool will kill them. Man, I tell you, I read that and I'm thinking, I've actually seen that happen a lot of times where people who do foolish things over and over and over again, they get hurt. And it's not just they get hurt. Proverbs 13:20 says, a friend of fools, a companion of fools, will suffer harm, because when a fool keeps doing foolish things, it hurts the people around them. And so parents, I want to challenge you to pour into your kids and lead them in understanding wisdom. Throughout Proverbs, you'll hear the writer say, listen to your father's instruction, treasure your mother's words. I mean, listen, you're all your kids have that stand between them and growing up to be just fools. And I know it's exhausting. I know it's thankless. I really do. I mean, I remember, and I've got my grandkids now, so I remember how tired you get. But I want to challenge you, don't give up. Don't give up. But because you're the one that kind of enters into the life of your children and you help them deal with the simplicity of their thinking and the foolishness of their choices. Proverbs 22:15 says, foolishness is bound up in a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it away. And I've always loved that when I was spanking my kids, but that's not what it's talking about. I mean, when you think about a shepherd, that shepherd staff was a rod. It wasn't just for hitting the sheep. It was for protecting them. It was for bringing them back from danger. And that means you got to get to know your kids. It means you got to spend time with them. You can't just say, make good choices, do your best, because they're fools. They're simpletons. I mean, you've got to get involved in their life, and that takes work. You can't just say at 18, well, I've done my best, I've done my part. No, parenting never ends. Listen, I got a 35-year-old, 33-year-old, a 27-year-old, and I'm still parenting. It's a little bit different, more of a consultant, but I'm still parenting. I'm still entering into their life. I'm still saying things that are difficult for them to hear. Proverbs 22:6 says, direct your children on the right paths, and when they are older, they won't leave it. You say, well, how do you do that? With your time. What do you do with your time? Do you spend time with them? You have an exorbitant amount of time to be around them. It's not just quality time, it's quantity time. What do you do with your words? What do you say? What do you do with your money? What are your habits? Listen, kids are pesky. They're sneaky. They're watching you. And they're a lot more interested in what you're doing rather than what you're saying. So train them to be wise. At Venture, we try to help you with that. We got house church. We got KXP on the weekends. We got a reading program that you can read together as a family that can help you. Listen, and deal with their tendencies. I'm going to do this real quick. Think about your kids in the way they're wired. And if you only let them go in the way they're wired, they're going to be fools. So some of your children are anxious. You got to coach them, encourage them to be more confident. Put them in situations where you can help them be less anxious and more confident. For some of your kids, they're very aggressive. And you got to teach them to be a little more tender. I mean, you can't just say, oh, look at that. Boy, he's wild and woolly, isn't he? No, he's a fool. You bring them back from the edge. You teach them to be kinder and more in control. Some of your kids are analytical. It's black and white, black and white, black and white. And you got to teach them, hey, sometimes you got to show grace. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes things don't work out. If you don't define and help your children deal with their tendencies, they will be fools. You say, how do you do that? It's the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, where you reverence him. You fall in love with his word, his ways, and his wishes for your kids and for your life. I want to pray this prayer for you with regard to parents. Father, thank you for the gift you've given me and my child. Give me wisdom to train them and guide them in your ways. Give me strength and courage to never stop. Man, I want you to go over and over and over that prayer, because you're all your kids have.